Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 312 for the 12th of October 2014. Richard Saunders here with you from very nice Sydney, Australia. Nice weather this time of the year. Not too hot. Not too hot, just lovely, warm, sunny days with rain tomorrow. Maybe I should apply for the job as the weatherman. I mean, people are always saying how skeptical they are of the weather forecast. Sort of goes together a bit, doesn't it? Let's get back onto this week's show. Yes, this week's show, we have lots of reports, interviews and reports from the paranormal convention that myself, Jo Alabaster and Maynard went to last weekend. The Paranormal and Spiritual Expo at Casula here in Sydney. A very interesting day, a very worthwhile day for skeptics. There was a group from Australian skeptics there who had a table, and I was part of that, and we gave away many issues of the Skeptic magazine, which you hear advertised on this program from time to time. We brought along some back issues, and we were giving those away, and people were really interested. It was so nice to talk to, well, a lot of people who are believers in all sorts of interesting things. A lot of people wanted to find out more about Australian skeptics. They weren't sure what we were all about. Somebody hissed at me, which was interesting, but there you go. Somebody claimed that they could see my aura. Well, maybe they could. Who knows? But what a great day it was. What an interesting day it was, and I was delighted to go there and give a talk, of course. So lots of reports about this adventure. We're going to kick off with Evidence, Please, with Jo Alabaster. Her take on the whole affair. This was Jo's first adventure, expedition, outing, so to speak, as a reporter. She had a press pass and she was delighted, and I think you'll find her report on the activities of the Paranormal Convention from her perspective very interesting. Jo Alabaster always gives good reports, very interesting and thoughtful reports, so I'm looking forward to hearing her take on the Paranormal Expo. Following that, it's a week in science from the Royal Institution of Australia in Adelaide, beautiful Adelaide, www.riaus.org.au. What a fine outfit it is because they do outreach. I really appreciate scientific institutions like the Royal Institution of Australia who do outreach. Get out there and try to communicate science to the public. I think that's a very worthwhile thing to do. Then after that, lots of interviews from the Paranormal Convention. Maynard with his microphone running around the Paranormal Convention, chatting to believers and stallholders and ghost hunters and UFO people, all sorts of people. I think every skeptic should listen to what believers have to say. Even if you consider this to be an education, a look inside the mind, the thinking processes of these people. Why do they think this way? I think you'll find this really interesting, and I encourage you to listen to this week's show for that reason. We can call ourselves skeptics all we want, and we can think that we know the better way and all the rest of it, but you know what? We really should have an understanding, at least, of what other people think and why they think it. I find this really endlessly fascinating, this whole realm of psychology, you might want to say, why people believe in things. Why do they do it? What convinced them? What's their point of view? An interesting episode of the Skeptic Zone this week. I think you'll agree. Now, here's some good news for those people who live in Canberra and the surrounding areas of the Australian Capital Territory. The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe Plus special guest George Hrab will be visiting Canberra on Tuesday the 25th of November. What's more, you can come and meet them. They're going to be appearing at the Finkel Theatre, John Curtin School of Mechanical Research, Building 131. Good heavens. And the blurb says, come and join the cast of The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe and special guest George Hrab for a Q&A session about science, skepticism, and anything else that comes to mind. Want to find out more? Want to come along? Want to be part of the night with The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe with guest George Hrab? Visit www.canberraskeptics.org.au. And what a night it will be, because after you get your fill of science and fun from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, we can repair to King O'Malley's Irish pub in Canberra and experience George Hrub live. Wow. I love going to see George Hrub concerts. They're fun, they're interesting, the music is fantastic. You know his songs so well. Far, for example, is a great song by George Hrub. Of course, he does the Geologic podcast, and the admission is free. And that will be from about 8 o'clock on Tuesday, the 25th of November. So George Hrub and the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, and I'll even come along as well. I wouldn't miss this, folks. I would not miss this. I'm going to be joining the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe and George Hrub for the whole evening. What a lot of fun that should be. Again, for more information about this fantastic night of skepticism and songs and all sorts of things, canberraskeptics.org.au. That's the website to run to. And just in case you can't get enough of skepticism, I'll be returning to Canberra on Wednesday, the 10th of December, for a talk entitled The Making of the Vaccination Chronicles and Are Ghosts Scared of Skeptics? It's sort of a double feature. I'll give an overview about making my latest documentary, The Vaccination Chronicles. How did I go about it? Who did I seek? What's editing involved? And all that sort of stuff. Plus, I'll be giving a talk about Are Ghosts Scared of Skeptics? And we'll be going into the Australian Skeptics $100,000 challenge. Lots of fun. I hope to see you there. Again, just visit www.canberraskeptics.org.au. I shall be chatting a little bit more about this talk in the coming weeks, I'm sure. And thank you to Canberra Skeptics for inviting me to come along and talk. And wow, what a great job they do. They're so active down there. Or up there. Well, that's the capital. Canberra is the capital of Australia, so I guess when you go there, you're always going up there. Even if you're going down there. Or over there. Something like that. And if all that wasn't enough, it's about time I mentioned the fact that my dear old friend James Randi will be touring Australia in December. He's going to be in Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. The website to go to for information and to book your tickets quick is thinkinc.org.au/James Randi. Now, I'm going to be chatting to James Randi on the Skeptic Zone in the coming weeks. James Randi at 86. At 86, folks, still going strong. Well, he certainly is amazing. Yes, get your tickets for an evening with James Randi. Well, all that combined with the Australian Skeptics National Convention, starring SGU and George Hrub and Dr. Raichi and all sorts of other people. The Chaser are going to be there from ABC TV. I'll be running around doing something, I'm sure. What a time for skeptics it is coming up. You know what, folks? It's time for me to run downstairs, cook up some macaroni cheese. Macaroni cheese. An old favourite, yeah. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
What we want is some more evidence, please. Here's Jo Alabaster.
Hello, this is Jo Alabaster. Well, as you know, last week, Richard Maynard and I and some fellows from the Australian Skeptics headed down to Casula to attend the Australian Paranormal and Spiritual Expo 2014. While Maynard was running about with his microphone talking to all sorts of interesting people, and Richard was chatting with attendees and preparing for his talk, I spent the day attending the workshops and talks that were being run in the theatre. Now, frankly, I had utterly no idea what to expect of the day. This was the first event I'd attended based around things that we skeptics tend to be skeptical about. Though I've put my hand up to have a wander around the next Mind, Body, Spirit Expo that's on, and I suspect I head to many others in the future. I had a fun and very interesting day. Before the first workshop, I had a bit of a wander around the tables that were set up in the main hall downstairs to see who was there and what sorts of things they were talking about or selling, and they were a varied bunch. Ghost hunters, psychics, people concerned with auras, crystal sellers, all sorts of fun novelties. Inflatable aliens and Edgar Allan Poe action figures were spotted, people drawing portraits of spirit guides, and people selling clothing. What stood out to me, that it was all quite benign, actually. I'm the sort of skeptic who struggles most with medical quackery. Comparatively, I actually find the paranormal side of things quite fun. It's not to say that I think it's all harmless. I worry about people handing money over to shonky psychics who aren't on the up and up, and I get a little concerned as to whether claims to be able to contact the deceased interfere with people's grieving processes. But all in all, belief in the paranormal isn't something I feel any huge need to rail against. So, the first workshop for the day was run by Kylie Allerton, titled A Tarot Ritual, Connecting You with the Spirit World. I entered the theatre to be greeted by an interesting scene on the stage. A circular mat was on the floor, surrounded by cushions, and on the mat were an assortment of items. A small cauldron sort of thing, a little resin-cast human skull, a couple of long bones, some goblet-type cups, an incense burner, and a deck of tarot cards. I took a seat near the front of the theatre and took everything in. Well, for someone who doesn't tend to get too much exposure to the world of spirituality, it was an unusual scene for me to behold. Before long, the friendly people who were running the expo introduced Kylie Allerton. Kylie is a psychic reader and practicing white witch who incorporates crystal balls, the tarot and palmistry when conducting readings. And today she was working with the tarot. And us. The audience, there were perhaps 40 of us, were invited to come and join her on stage and create a circle around the mat. It took me by surprise, frankly. I was expecting something akin to a lecture rather than a participatory exercise, but I decided on the spot that I'd take the opportunity to join in and experience everything that I could. I hoped that nobody would mind a non-believer taking part in what was about to happen. If such a thing as negative or cynical vibes exist, I aimed not to emit them. I did my best to be open to whatever occurred and to join in rather than poo-poo things that I don't necessarily believe in. So down we went. We formed a seated circle around the mat, and some people removed their shoes and got comfortable. Kylie explained that we were going to do some summoning and that she'd give us each a tarot card to use as a portal to the spirit plane. We began the ritual with some breathing exercises, during which we were to consider a person who had passed away that we wished to get in contact with, and a question that we'd like to ask them. The incense was heady and I focused on my breath, so I didn't really spend a great deal of time paying attention to what the other participants were up to, but the room seemed incredibly calm. Then Kylie began to open a witch's circle. Now, this isn't a subject that I know too much about, but she recited incantations, blessings, and called upon the spirits of air and fire. And when she did this, we joined in with a little bit of chanting. Bones were struck together, something was set on fire, and we were ready. Kylie walked around the circle with a deck of tarot cards held out face down, and we were instructed to choose one each. And my chosen person who'd passed away that I thought I'd like to have a conversation with was my beloved grandmother, and the tarot card that I'd selected was the High Priestess. The character in this card struck me as rather matriarchal, a wise woman, as I consider my grandmother to be. Some others, particularly those who had cards from the minor arcana, sort of the equivalent of number cards rather than face cards, didn't see immediate relevance in the cards that they'd selected. Kylie invited us to think about our first impressions on seeing the pictures on the cards, study the colours and details, and offered to chat with people throughout the day if they wanted a hand interpreting their selection. Next, we used the cards to create portals to the spirit world. We followed Kylie's instructions and examined them with our regular eyes, then held them to our foreheads and examined them with our third eyes. We put our cards down and visualised them with our third eyes, then imagined them growing to the size of a painting, to the size of a doorway, into a doorway, which we then stepped through. I found this fairly simple to go along with. It was much like participating in guided meditation, and I went with whatever came to mind as we were taken through a scenario of walking into our cards through a landscape, this was the spirit world, then toward our deceased loved one, who we conversed with. The background of my cards seemed to be tropical fruit, so I imagined walking through a plantation of pineapples, which became a very odd forest, where I eventually met my grandmother. I remember my grandmother fairly well, I think, although I'm aware that our memories aren't entirely reliable, and I imagined a fairly believable conversation with her. She wasn't a believer when she was alive, and acquiesced in our conversation that she was a composite of my memory and imagination. Then Kylie guided us through saying goodbye, heading back across our landscapes, back through our doorways, and told us to shrink the cards back down to their actual size again. The circle was closed and we toddled off with our cards. The next session, Communicating with the Dead, Modern Techniques and Victorian Twists, was with Rob and Anne from Eastern States Paranormal, a paranormal investigative team based in New South Wales. Rob and Anne were very affable speakers and presented us with an overview of their experiences attempting to communicate with the dead, and the techniques they've used to do so. We were taken through some audio of different techniques they've used in reputably haunted locations to contact the spirits. Singing, stomping, chanting, singing in tones which clash. Anne and Rob played us some recordings of EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, which are sounds found on electronic recordings that some interpret as spirit voices. Now, the audio recordings were of varying quality, and I cannot say whether or not what we were hearing were the voices of spirits. But I was incredibly aware of the concept of pareidolia throughout this presentation, pareidolia being our tendency to recognise patterns within random stimuli, with or without suggestion. It's an interesting phenomenon. We hear phrases when songs are played backwards, or we see faces in the surface of Mars. I feel that a desire or expectation to see or hear something, sometimes combined with suggestion, can account for many things which are heard in EVPs or seen in spirit photography, which is also presented in Eastern States Paranormal's talk. Toward the end, we were given an interesting rundown on the history of different modalities which people have used to attempt to contact the spirit world, Ouija boards, tipping tables and the like. As a skeptical type, I feel that the ideomotor effect comes into a play with both of these things are being used, but I find them to be fascinating curiosities. Anne and Rob struck me as kind and good human people. They were curious about contacting the other side, they were very respectful in their approach, and they wished to help others experiencing otherworldly concerns. After a break for lunch was the draw card of the expo, Mitchell Coombs. Billed as Australia's most trusted psychic medium and awarded 2011 Psychic of the Year, Mitchell Coombs is an author, appears on radio and television regularly, and was one of the contestants on Season 1 of The One, a reality TV show pitting psychics against one another, on which our very own Richard Saunders was a judge. This was the only talk of the day in which the expo organisers had to enforce seating arrangements based on which tickets people had purchased. I was behind the platinum and gold pass holders in the media row. All up, there would have been around 150 people. While I've seen broadcasts of many psychic shows on television and YouTube, and have seen Mitchell himself on daytime television, this was the first time I'd been an audience member. It was a very different experience. Mitchell is a very charismatic speaker. He's high-paced, energetic, and very good at engaging his audience. After he'd introduced himself and told an anecdote about a client who wasn't certain she'd had an experience with contact from the afterlife, of course she had, Mitchell asked us to help him raise the energy of the room by standing up, stomping our feet, clapping our hands, and cheering. It reminded me of being in an evangelical church or faith healing service. The crowd went wild, and excitement in the room was palpable. Mitchell then seemed to receive messages from the spirit world to be passed on to members of the audience. I found this part a little difficult. A couple of days prior, I'd been chatting with Richard about the talk he was going to present, and one of the things he covered were questions that psychics can use to gain more information from the audience. I'm getting an A name, or I'm seeing a blue car, etc. Mitchell did get an A name, but the car or motorcycle was red. The audience did seem to get a lot out of his readings, though. There was a lot of laughter and a few tears. I'd recommend that anyone skeptical of psychics attend such a show. Experiencing the emotion in the room gave me a greater appreciation of how psychics can interact with their audiences. Usually when I see readings done, I'm able to rewind, rewatch and analyse while removed from the situation. Recordings are very different to observe than live shows. Next up was Sue Bishop, presenting a workshop on Energetic Healing. Are your thoughts and feelings making you sick? Sue is a metaphysician, psychic, teacher and author, and is the co-founder and director of the Chiara College of Metaphysics, which offers courses on metaphysics, parapsychology, spiritual healing and intuitive sciences. Now, this session was the closest the expo came to presenting what I felt was questionable health advice. I did struggle with some of it a little. Sue believes that blocked chakras can be responsible for disease, that tending to the spiritual self can prevent disease from taking hold, and that energetic healing can be conducted, attending to a person's auras, to manage their wellness. Sitting and listening to her speak about these things, and tell us of how she prevented the diabetes that she had a genetic predisposition toward by making lifestyle changes and letting go of troubles from her past, I frequently wanted to ask her how she knew such things, but interrupting her talk would have been very rude. I'd be curious to speak with her more about her beliefs in the future, though. Sue then had us come to the stage for an energetic healing workshop. We were to pair up with strangers and prepare for the first exercise. Now, my partner was a sweet woman, around my own age, and I found myself worrying that she'd feel that I was being somewhat disingenuous, being a skeptic taking part in something which might be important to her. I took part in the exercises with good intentions, absolutely wished her well, and followed the instructions that Sue gave as best as I could. First was an exercise in which we were instructed to take turns, channeling white light into our crown chakras, then focusing to make that light either cool, fast-moving blue or warm, slow red, then passing it to our partners, who had to guess what colour light they'd been given. My partner did the channeling first and was surprised that I'd guessed correctly that she'd aimed to pass me blue. Oh, frankly, the odds were 50-50 to begin with. Then I took into consideration that cool blue was much more appealing under the hot stage lights, and that my partner had an expression on her face which made her appear more likely to be thinking of cool flowing blue than hot slow red. Then it was my turn to pass a colour. I'm not entirely sure what white light or energy is. It isn't visible light, but I know the crown chakra is about the forehead, and so I imagined a beam of white light entering my forehead, moving through my body into my hands and turning into a cool, calm, flowing blue. I made a gesture of passing it to my partner and imagined it moving into her hands, and she told me it was blue. Again, I'm inclined to put it down to probability, environmental influences, and visual clues, and perhaps the way Sue described the two colours as she was giving us our instructions. Maybe one seemed more appealing than the other. I didn't have an opportunity to note the trends of the entire group. Our next exercise was to do the same, but instead of passing a colour, we were to pass an emotion from our memories. Sue asked us to keep our faces neutral as we recalled a time of joy, to be visualised as yellow, or hurt, which was to be visualised as a hot, murky red. My partner went first, and I watched her concentrate. Her face did remain fairly neutral, but she took some time before she was ready to pass to me, and her body language struck me as quite unhappy. I was actually quite concerned for her. When she made a passing gesture to me, I told her that I felt that things weren't too good for her and asked if she was okay. Well, she was incredibly apologetic, and all I could think to do was reassure her that I was fine, just concerned for her, and opt to send her joy in return. And she seemed a little fragile and sad to me. Perhaps she'd been through hard times, and I hoped that my good intentions were more important somehow than my lack of belief. Then we moved to the front row of seats, partner number 1 standing behind partner number 2, and performed what we were told was a short energy healing session. Now, there was a lot to it. White universal energy from above, grounding earth energy from below, healing angels standing behind us. Chakras, auras, miasm, many different colours, silver filaments, faux hat, akasha and ether, nadis, and this was complicated stuff. Sue talked us through everything. She spoke of energy to visualise, what each aura looked like, that we were to transfer energy from various places through ourselves and to the person we were healing, massaging their auras. Now, the massage was literal. We placed hands on one another, then raised them to where each aura was meant to exist and sort of smoothed them out. And when my partner was being the healer, I sat peacefully in my seat and listened to the descriptions of colours and patterns and lights. And frankly, it was quite pleasant to just sit passively. When asked how I felt afterwards, I truthfully replied that I was ready to get into bed. It had been a long day and I welcomed more stillness. Next was my turn to stand while my partner sat, and I imagined light coming from above, energy coming from below, somebody standing behind me passing general healing sort of vibes through me. I put my hands on my partner's shoulders, smoothed out what are to me imaginary auras, and generally hoped that she was well, and she seemed happy afterwards. One thing I really want to say about the energy healing workshop, and to Sue's credit, in my mind, she did mention several times that one of the things people do when they're experiencing the onset of disease is to dismiss thoughts of going to their doctor, and that this was a problem. And I agree with her strongly here. If things are potentially amiss, see your GP. The last talk of the day was from Richard Saunders. And I'd really like to credit the organisers of the Australian Paranormal and Spiritual Expo for inviting a skeptic to speak at their event. I think that it's a testament to their sense of inquiry that they'd include the perspective of a non-believer in their program. I really wasn't sure how Richard's talk would be received. After introducing himself, explaining his background and what the Australian skeptics and wider skeptical movements do, Richard posed some questions about the nature of ghosts and spirits and the mechanisms people use to detect and communicate with them, and discussed the fallibility of human memory and perception, noted some questions that psychics who aren't on the up and up can use to gain information when cold reading, and explained how pareidolia works. It was all really well received. I noticed a lot of people in the audience nodding along in agreement, a few aha moments, and a few giggles at Richard's jokes. And we had a few people approach us afterwards to say that they were happy that we were there. This is including my partner from the Energy Healing Workshop, who I was glad to have the opportunity to have a bit of a debriefing chat with and let her know that I wished her the best. So that was my day at the Australian Paranormal and Spiritual Expo. Now, I can't honestly say that I saw any evidence of an afterlife, anybody's ability to communicate with those who have passed on, the existence of psychic energies, spirits, or the paranormal in general. But I did encounter many people who were welcoming, good-humoured and kind-hearted. So thank you to everyone I saw at the expo. It was a lot of fun, and I hope to see you again next year.
Ein großes Hallo an alle deutschen Zuhörer des Skeptic Zone Podcasts. Wusstet ihr, dass es auch in Deutschland einen Skeptikerverband gibt? Für weitere Informationen über uns und das Skeptiker Magazin besucht www.gwup.org. Ich wiederhole, www.gwup.org und unsere offiziellen Facebook, Twitter und Google Plus Seiten.
Welcome to A Week in Science from RiAus, bringing you the science you need to know. Elephant-hunting Americans and muddled ancient Chinese people? We've learned a lot about archaeology recently. It's time to ask the question, what's new in old stuff? Believe it or not, ancient Americans hunted elephants. A new archaeological site in Mexico has the 13,400-year-old remains of a camp of the mysterious Clovis people, and in it were parts of two gomphotheres, a type of extinct elephant. The Clovis culture is identified by distinctive stone tools, long thought to be the oldest in the Americas, and Clovis people are probably the ancestors of all modern American indigenous people. Remains of mammoths, mastodons and bison have also been found in Clovis camps, suggesting they had a wide diet, including huge prey. The New Mexican finds also suggest that the Clovis culture may have originated in the American Southwest. A skull from China suggests that human evolution may not have been as simple as we first thought. A 100,000-year-old archaic human skull was found in northeastern China 35 years ago. But recent micro-CT scans of the temporal bone reveals that the inner ear closely resembles that of Neanderthals, while other bones found at the site do not. Until this intriguing find, it was thought that modern people in Asia arrived from elsewhere and displaced more archaic humans. But now, this find suggests a more complicated picture, with mixed migration patterns and possible interbreeding between the modern arrivals and the more ancient inhabitants. And now, 4 fast facts about recent archaeological discoveries. Human footprints found in a Romanian cave may be 20,000 years older than we first thought, coming in at an astounding 36,500 years old. A Roman site in County Durham in the north of England has been described as the Pompeii of the North, with finds including a beautiful 1,800-year-old silver ring that is one of the earliest pieces of evidence of Christianity in Roman Britain. An excavation in northern Sudan has revealed a settlement estimated to be 70,000 years old, with sizable permanent structures well adapted to a wetland environment, and 3,500 to 4,000-year-old rock art in Peru, peppered with astronomical symbols, may be the world's oldest astronomy lab. That's it for this A Week in Science. For more information on recent archaeological discoveries, go to the RiAus website, riaus.org.au. Follow us on Twitter at RiAus and like us on Facebook. I'm Paul Willis. We'll catch you back here next week.
Now on Belfast FM, we turn to the personal ads. Easygoing and confident skeptic seeks other critical thinkers for fun, laughter and good times. Must be willing to apply logic liberally and a good listener. Expect something new and interesting every month. Come and meet me in Belfast in Northern Ireland. If this sounds like you, check out my profile on belfastskeptics.com. Music by Kevin MacLeod.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Okay, look, I'm just with 2 people who are not quite sure how helpful they might be. Believe you me, I'm helping no one today. What have you seen of interest here out at Kashula?
I don't quite know yet, to be honest. I've only just gotten here and done a lab.
Okay. Are you thinking of talking to some ghost hunters? You're going to get some crystals? You're going to get your aura cleansed over there? What are you into?
No, I'm more into the ghost hunting and the paranormal side of things, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you done any yourself?
Oh, heaps, yeah, quite a lot.
Okay, and you're also one?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Yeah. What's your most powerful experience you've had? Would you want to share it with us?
Yeah, sure. There's probably been a few too many to explain, I think, but probably one of the best ones was one that we both experienced, where we were working late at work one night, and
so we're talking 2, 3 a.m. or
probably about 8 p.m., 9 p.m., something like that. And we both felt and heard some type of creature run across the floor, and I felt it rush past me, and then it ran up the wall, and we heard it thumping up the wall. Okay. And then almost as though it went backwards across the ceiling, back in the direction it came from.
Okay, so it was mainly an auditory thing, or did you just see anything at all?
Didn't see anything that time, but heard it, definitely, and I felt it rush past me as well, yeah.
Oh, okay. Any idea what it might have been? Is there any history of that in the place?
Yeah, it's a pretty haunted place.
Oh, great, that's good. Just what you need to make you nervous.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But needless to say, I think we packed up and got out of there as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, look, I think we've discovered enough for one night.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I have been talking to a few ghost hunters tonight and talk about the very rare visual one. You don't often get a visual sighting. Has that ever happened to you guys at all?
Yeah, same place, different night. Both times, we weren't actively hunting. We were just working at the time. Same place. As we said, this place has got a bit of a history to it. It was an old nursing home, being converted into a office space type thing. And a different night, we were working. It's the same room we were working in. Actually, we were setting it up for AV fit out, and I noticed we've got a security guard who's working in the building at the same time, and I noticed a figure walk past the door, and I thought, oh, it's a security guard. It looked black to me. Just walked past our door, and I looked to my friend, and he said, and he looked at me like, as in, did you see someone walk past? And I said, yeah, someone walked past the door, and he said, all right. So I got up to check and say good day, how's your night been? And there was no one there. And down the other way, there's nowhere else to go. There's just a little break room. There was no one in the room. And I got back and said, was that the security guard? He said, no, they weren't dressed in black. They were all in white. So we'd both seen something different.
Okay, right, okay.
So he'd seen all white, I'd seen all black.
And it's just like a shadow going past quickly.
And when I spoke, as I'm speaking to him, I look out the window and there's a security guard down in the car park talking to someone else. So that was the whole unexplained. That, again, was the goosebumps and, all right, it's time to pack up and go home.
Yeah, and I guess you got no theory as to what's going on there, really, have you?
No. That's what sparked my interest and got me into looking at, starting to go into the whole hunting thing and starting to find some answers for myself as what's going on here.
Okay, well, look, I hope you have a very informative day today, because this is where the industry in Australia is today, the ghost hunting industry.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Look, of course, when you come to a paranormal expo, you see lots of great people, but man, you've got the good outfit there. Could you explain your outfit for the listener?
Sure, I'm actually dressed up as a Ghostbuster from the movie Ghostbusters. Got the proton pack and the PKE meter and the trap. And
did you make much of it yourself?
So the proton pack and the neutrino wand, all made from a kit, and everything else was basically bought.
Oh, look, I've got to say, the way you made up the kit's great. All the lights are flashing, it's going off there. And do you actually work for a ghost hunting outfit?
I sure do. I actually work for Appy, who helped organise this.
Oh, great.
I'm one of their paranormal investigators.
And is it normally getting people to go on tours, or do you normally find people that are kind of clients that want you to have a bit of a look around their place?
So we handle more tours. We don't really do private investigations as such. More tours. We have a couple of set venues that we do on a monthly basis.
I think we're in one of them, aren't we?
We are. We're at the Kashula Powerhouse, which is my personal favourite of the three we do. Lots of weird stuff happens here. We've recently done our documentary, which is premiering tonight. So,
Now, tell us about the Kashula Powerhouse history of spookiness, because I believe it was a powerhouse, but its Oogie Boogie time comes from before that.
Yeah, so before it was a power station, there was actually a picnic ground here, and during the time it was a picnic ground, there was quite a few drownings in the river outside. There's also a couple of deaths attributed to the train station outside as well.
Okay, which is probably one reason why the level crossing is no longer there.
That's very true. Yes,
and it is a very impressive. Now I've got one with a ghost. Look, what did you think of Ghostbusters 2? Now it's just between you and me.
I liked it. Okay. I like both of them equally.
That's a very
big fan.
That's a very balanced reply.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, thank you very much. Have a great day here. People are just going to be coming up to you because you've got the outfit.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the great tables here, I'm in front of the Newcastle Ghost Tours. Now, being in Novocastrian, the spookiest end of town for me would be Newcastle West on a Saturday night can get pretty ugly, but Newcastle East has quite a ghost history, doesn't it?
Yes, and Newcastle West can still get pretty ugly on a Saturday night, but...
But they're mainly the living people.
That's exactly right, yes. Newcastle East is probably our most historic end of town, and, of course, the first settled end of town. So,
and what is the building to go to if you had to have some sort of unusual vibe?
Well, you've got Fort Scratchley, of course, which has all of that history up there. The old lock-up building, which is now a contemporary art gallery, also has a great history. Fantastic to go and visit if you want to have a look at the old jail cells and the old setup of the old lock-up. But even just a walk around town, up the old asylum site as well. All fantastic areas. Christchurch Cathedral could go on for hours.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. Because up around the cathedral, that's where they used to have the graveyard that they had to move.
That's right. No, the graveyard is still there. There's over 3,300 bodies still interned.
It's the headstones they had to move, I'm sorry.
Yes, all the headstones have been moved, except for a few.
Wow, okay. And is there any personal experience you can relate to us just briefly of something that's happened to you while you've been living in Newcastle and wandering around in these areas?
Well, I take people on tours there all the time. I do the ghost tours through the East End, so we have people who have experiences all the time, especially at Fletcher Park up on the hill overlooking the water.
The only place in Newcastle that has a statue, I believe.
Exactly right, of Mr. James Fletcher, that's right. But there are ladies, ghostly ladies, that come and visit every so often. It's a well-known spot where people have actually, unfortunately, ended their life. by suiciding or jumping off the cliff. So it is full of spooky energy, and sometimes when people are sitting there on the benches watching the beautiful moon rise over the wonderful beach there, they have a bit of an experience, most definitely.
And that is one of the reasons you may be asking why people have chose to end their life there. It is unfortunately adjacent to the psychiatric centre for many years, and that was partially part of the reason why they've moved it.
That's exactly right. But history, even before that, even before King Edward Park was actually King Edward Park, we have stories of people wandering around that area and actually losing their footing off the cliff edge, falling, losing their life, lovers meeting there to end their lives in lovers' trysts. All these amazing bits of history there, so yeah.
And I see you've got a lot of that put together in an anecdotal book over there.
Yes, Newcastle Ghost Stories, which I'm selling at the moment. It is a mixture of tales of people who have had experiences today, in this day and age, but also we have articles from the newspapers, early newspapers dating back to the late 1800s, where it was really extremely something to do to have ghost stories published in the newspapers.
It was like part of legitimate news, like at least once a week you'd want something in there.
Most definitely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And what sort of people are coming up to you today, apart from idiots like myself going,
I think people who are interested to see what everyone has to offer, first of all. And we're getting some sales through, which is really great. Spreading the word.
Where is that great scent coming from? Normally at Paranormal Sense, you get great scents from everywhere. Where is that really good scent coming from, that smell? Where is it?
I don't know.
It's great, isn't it? What do you reckon, lavender? What is it?
Maybe it's my perfume. I don't know.
It was that candle. What about
this lady selling beautiful candles straight behind us?
I think that's what it is. Thank you very much. Thank you. Following my nose to your table, basically, yes. I'm here with Julie, and what are you up to here today, Julie?
I'm selling eco-friendly soy candles.
Because I have been smelling some really nice scents in the room, and yours are probably some of them. What sort of scents have you got here, and what sort of claims are being made about these scents, apart from the fact they smell nice?
Okay, I tend to do a lot for the spiritual and the paranormal community. We do a lot of protection scents like lavender and sea salt. We do sandalwood. We do a lot of the earthy natural oils and natural materials.
Okay. When I think of cleansing as a scent, I tend to think of vanilla, but is that correct or not?
Vanilla is cleansing, but also anything with lemongrass or lime or citrus in it is cleansing. And lavender and sea salt for protection.
Okay. And is there anything of this, these scents sound a little bit like the European? Do the original Aboriginal inhabitants have their own scents that they used as well?
Yes, I think that they did. A lot of the earthy scents like sandalwood, cedar, a lot of the woody, earthy type ones are very, very much so.
And what would people normally come to you? You'd say, I'm just feeling a bit out of sorts lately. You'd recommend them or what?
Like somebody who was a bit flat, a bit down, or needed a bit of a lift, I'd recommend Serenity, which is lemongrass and ginger.
Oh, okay. The one I hear a bit about is ylang ylang. Is that one that's an up into it kind of one?
Oh, ylang ylang is if you want a nice night at home with your partner. That's the type of scent, Bit of a Barry White music, but if ylang ylang...
It's the Barry White scent, ylang ylang. Okay. Well, thank you for being so adult and open with me about that one.
No problem.
Well, I hope you have a good day, and I think you're going to do very well. A lot of people trying them out.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Look, as you know, I've been hot on the very nice, because this place does smell fantastic today. We've got lovely scents. And is what you've got here a mixture of everything I can smell, or is that one particular scent that's coming across?
I believe it's the Goddess type fragrance over there. And we've also got Nag Champa, and we've got a few other things like monkey farts, chocolate.
Okay,
so,
right.
Nice.
Okay. Now, what mixture would be in the Goddess? Would there be some ylang ylang in that?
Yes, I believe there's that, along with some patchouli, and I can't think of the rest off the top of my head.
Patchouli, always a classic, always takes anyone back to the 70s almost immediately. And as we think of patchouli with the 70s, is there a more contemporary scent that is sort of newish? I mean, do you get any new scents coming out or not? Or is it you just mix them together?
There are always new scents coming out, but a lot of people stick to some of the oldies and goodies. Yes.
Okay, look, now just between you and me and the listening audience, what's your favourite?
I absolutely love lemon myrtle fragrance. It's beautiful.
Is it invigorating or relaxing? Or
for me, I like the citrusy type of fragrance, so I like that. Okay. Yeah.
And for the purists at home, is it best to get the oil and then have a candle burner under it, or have it in a candle? What's the best way to get your scent out into the world?
You could go for melts, which have all the fragrance in it. So like the old oil burner, don't use the oils anymore because they could be a bit dangerous. So
and you set fire to your curtains and whoops, there goes the house.
Yes, exactly. So you can get melts in lots of different fragrances, and then just pop the little tea light in the melt warmer and away you go, aromatherapy.
And when most people come up here, what are they normally asking you about? Are they going, I'm feeling a bit flat, I'm feeling a bit sad, I want to get happy? Is it as vague as that?
Not really. We're about using natural products and stuff here, so a lot of the people are into that and using natural things. Our soaps are palm-free, so good for the environment as well. So, they're all about natural alternatives.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Oh, look, I'm at the rather poetically named Mrs. Mulligan's Ghostly Whispers of Old Berrima. Now, I've spoken to some people from my hometown of Newcastle, some people from Katoomba, and what's spooky about Berrima?
Well, there's a lot that's spooky about Berrima, and since you're a skeptic, you should come along and see it for yourself.
Well, see, I'm actually a loose leaf skeptic, which means I get freaked out very easily. You could just put me in the dark anywhere in a new building that no one's ever been into, and I'd be scared on my own.
Well, if that's the case, I would suggest you're not really a skeptic because you get scared.
I think I'm just a scaredy cat. I think that's more actually what I am, of a nervous disposition. What's your favourite building to take people through?
I take people through the courthouse on all my tours because there's a lot of activity there, and a lot of paranormal teams have been through and made readings and had voices speaking to them, and all sorts of things happening. Also go to the front of the jail. So those two sites are probably the most popular with people because there's a lot more stories about those two sites than the other parts of town.
Do you think you actually have to be to some area where there's actually been deaths to experience something, or you can be to an area where there's just been events that have not involved a death?
Both, because I think when spirits are present, it's because they're dead. And events because some energy is left behind that can be quite potent. In one place in Berrima a few weeks ago, we saw things that I can only describe as highly negative energies. And I don't know why, but I do know that at that building, children were beaten.
And can you explain what way it manifested itself?
Yes. First of all, we saw some white shapes, and I didn't feel anything specifically wrong with those, like it was just shapes. But then there was this blood red thing that turned up about the size of a grizzly bear on all fours, and it was definitely, for me, I felt it was very threatening, and we didn't want to go close to it, and we left actually because it was actually really nasty.
Yeah, that does sound the kind of thing that would make me never go back into that building again.
We didn't go inside a building, it was outside a building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And it was just about less than 10 feet from us, and it was definitely very, very strange, and in fact I kept thinking it was demonic, but I mean I have no proof of that.
So a group of people all saw this at the same time?
5 of us.
Wow, okay. What time of the evening was it?
About 9:30 in the evening, and it was about in July, I think, or early August, so it was recently.
Oh, and it's a place you'd been to a number of times, but this is the only time you've had that experience there.
Yes, definitely. I'd never seen anything quite like this thing. It was really quite strange, and I felt a bit unnerved by it, and I'm not usually unnerved by that kind of thing.
I can certainly understand it. So what would make you go back there again? That's the question I'd have to ask.
Guts.
Okay, fair enough. Would any sort of religious belief make it easier to go back, or would a non-religious belief make it easier to go back? It could work either way, really.
Well, even though I have a religious belief system, I don't put any beliefs in my work. I come at it as an impartial person. I'm interested in a number of things, so religion doesn't enter into it.
Okay. And what do you think people are mainly looking for when they come along? Do they have something in their mind when they're going on your tours?
I think a lot of people just come along for entertainment.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
So I try to be entertaining, naturally.
And also what these ghost tours are, and I'd like mentioning, they're also good history tours.
Exactly. I'm passionate about the history of Berrima. So people actually get a historical tour as well as a ghost tour. And I find the two combine anyway, because when you're talking about hangings and the people who have come back from hangings, if you know what I mean, and some of them are still around. I've got at least 3 that I know of.
They'd be a bit cranky. They'd be a bit, put out, so to speak.
Actually, they treat me really well. However, they have treated other people quite, what can I say, violently.
Well, I imagine that they wouldn't react well to authority figures.
It doesn't actually just have to be authority figures.
Okay.
But no, it's. I think a lot of people that come on my tours like the entertainment, but some of them are just die-hard ghost fans.
Okay. Well, look, you have a good day here, and I'm sure you're going to meet a lot of interesting people.
Great, you too. Have a good one.
Now, I'm here with the Ghost Hunters Down Under in the exhibition space room. Hey, you're just under the air conditioning there, which means you get a bit of a cold breeze coming down on you continuously.
No, we're too hot, so that's all right. It'll cool us down a bit.
Now, where do you guys work? Where's your stomping ground?
Stomping ground is mainly Parramatta, Katoomba, yeah.
And what's your favourite building to work in? I've asked a lot of the ghost hunters. Everyone's got their favourite building with a good historical background. What's your favourite?
It's not so much a building, it's actually a cemetery. We're currently using RiAus Cemetery.
Wow, okay. And what's gone on in there over the years?
A lot of things. Not so many years. We've only just started this year, March this year.
Right. And what's the history of the place?
A lot of poltergeist, a lot of... what's it called? Ouija board action.
Okay.
And a lot of cults.
Okay. So when we're talking poltergeist activity, things getting moved around in there, is that what goes on?
Yes, things thrown, people being pushed, things happening to people's cars. History of a couple who just went to a funeral there. Their car had something wrong with it. They ploughed into a tree. They both died.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's a lot of...
It's a pretty spooky spot. And what do people normally hope to see when they come on lock with you? Because sometimes people can, I'm going to see something pretty amazing, and, and often they get just a really good history tour and some great stories.
Not necessarily. I mean, we've got a lot of sensitives on our team, and we also have an empath.
Okay.
So a lot of people are going to get raw emotion and a lot of visual experiences through the sensitive that we have on our team. Okay. So they will call out something and we'll go there and 9 times out of 10 my partner here, she's clairvoyant. So she is very accurate.
And what time of the night do you normally take people to the cemetery?
As late as possible, but we try and do as early.
3 o'clock in the afternoon, not very useful, I don't think. No, just a couple of school kids cutting through.
Yes, no. 8 o'clock onwards, basically, to about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well, look, have a good day here. It certainly came to a great place for it.
Yes, we've already investigated this area before with a documentary with Appy.
Yes, it's going to be screened tonight, isn't it?
Yes, we are actually credited for most of the EVPs, and we're actually in it. So,
right. Now, what do you find is the best device and way to get an EVP?
Just a standard voice recorder like you have there, the Tascam 360 mic.
Right. How do you get the wide range frequency?
Just basically place it down anywhere and just let it record.
Okay. Right.
We set it up, the decibels up to high, and just leave the room and let it go.
Okay. Well, look, I hope you have a great day. It's good to meet other people in the industry too, isn't it? It's the ghost busting industry here.
It is. It's very fun, and it's glad to finally meet people who we've added on Facebook, and it's awesome.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm here at the UFO and Paranormal Research Society of Australia. And who have we got here?
Lorraine.
You're from Campbelltown. What kind of area is Campbelltown for paranormal and UFO activity?
It's a hot spot.
Okay.
As you can see.
Yeah. And why do you think it's necessarily an anomalous hotspot?
I think because it's a rural area.
Is there a particularly historical spot that has a bit of a history that people tend to keep seeing things at?
Yes, around the MacArthur area in the Burragarang area of the mountains.
Of course, yes.
Around Barker's Lodge Road, Picton area. There's a lot of sightings from those areas.
Now, I know a lot of people want to see UFOs, but it's not the kind of thing you can go and see. You've kind of got to have it happen, really, haven't you?
Yes, we do conduct night watches with our members in the areas, the Burragarang Lookout, around the mountains.
And what's your website in case people want to get in contact with you?
It's www.ufosociety.net.au.
And have you got a favourite UFO spotting in the worldwide history of the phenomenon? Is there one that you go, that's pretty out there?
Oh, yes, definitely the Blue Mountains around Hill End, Lithgow.
All right. And when's the best one happened there that you know of?
I've had a sighting myself in the Burragarang area. And, we've captured anomalous craft or anomalous lights. Long Reef is another area, the northern shores. Yeah.
Oh. Look, thank you very much for your time today. I'm going to have a look at your video. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. What an interesting episode that was. More from the Paranormal Convention with interviews with other people coming up next week. Because Maynard was so busy, he got so many interviews and they're also very interesting. And if you remember from last week's episode, Michael Marshall was telling us about the chap who was harassed out the front of a Sally Morgan venue by her husband. Well, that's certainly blown up in the last week if you've been following social media. The video of this man being harassed by Sally Morgan's husband has gone viral. It's quite eye-opening. And congratulations to Michael Marshall and his friends in the UK for being on the case in this matter. It's good to see. But before I go, and because people keep requesting it, yes, it's time to roll the dice again, but this time it's not a 20-sided dice. No. It's not a 6. Not even a 6. It's a 4. I found a 4-sided dice in the shop the other day. So, for those people who never get the right number, here's a good chance. Oh boy, here's a good chance indeed. So, folks, think of the number 1, 2, 3, or 4. Here it comes. 1. How many people thought of the number 1? Want to do it again? All those people who thought of the number 1, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2. So, if you predicted a 1 and then a 2, well done. But for this week, with the dice in hand, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.
You haven't heard the Peanut song. It goes, I'm a peanut small and round, lying on the cold hard ground. Everybody steps on me. I'm as cracked as I can be. I'm a nut in a rut. I'm a nut in a rut. Hey!